Hello and welcome to GatherVerse AI Summit 2026. And what an amazing fireside chat with Christopher and Ellie. But on this amazing roundtable discussion, we're going to be talking about agents everywhere, our lives with AI. If I could ask every single speaker to just mute their microphones, just so that we don't get any disturbance while people are speaking, etc. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this roundtable discussion. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick introduction from each of yourselves. Also, I want to hear, why are you here today? Like, what are you most looking forward to? So we'll go around on that as well. So what we'll do is we'll start with Whitney Hart, then we'll go to Delia, then we'll go to Quinton, Alaya, Malvika, and Srin. So we'll start with Whitney first. So Whitney, please introduce yourself and welcome to GatherVerse for AI Summit 2026.
Hello, thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for including me. My name is Whitney Hart, and I am the Chief Strategy Officer at Avenue Z. We are a hybrid marketing, communications, and technology agency that is focused on using AI. And what does that mean responsibly? How do we implement that and advise our clients and third parties on what is happening in AI and how they can use it with better governance frameworks and with more responsibility? I am super excited, and I think this panel is so timely after all the news came out about AI agents forming their own social media networks this weekend.
Yeah,
so
we'll get into that definitely.
so I thought it was very timely to have this panel today, and I'm excited to dig in.
Well, thank you for joining us, Whitney, and welcome as well, and appreciate you being here today. So Delia, please introduce yourself and also welcome to GatherVerse, and tell people who you are.
Yes, my name is Delia Perla. I'm a Senior Vice President of Revenue at BizTech. BizTech is a technology company that uses AI, digital twins, and immersive platforms to help cities, organizations automate complex operations. We utilize agents as well to orchestrate those operations. We visualize data and make smarter decisions in real time, allowing our end user to be able to access that capability. The reason I'm here is I think much like everybody else, we're in hundreds of conversations every week around agents and about agentic AI and what's good and what's bad and what are we learning from the process. So I'm excited to be here.
I appreciate you being with us, Delia, and that is so true. I know the feeling on that one. Quinton, please introduce yourself and also welcome to GatherVerse AI Summit 2026.
Hi, thank you, Russell. Hi, my name is Quinton Wall. I'm the Director of AI Strategy and Solution at Expert.ai. I'm based just outside of Chicago. Expert.ai, we've been around for 30 years in the NLP space, and we are leveraging hybrid AI, so a combination of neural network and symbolic AI to help our customers extracting information from content. Why I'm here? I remember 20 years ago, we were speaking about multi-agent systems, and we have actually seen now the technology being there for there. So I'm here like to remind people that technology evolve, but the problem remains the same, and we have not really solved the problem yet.
That's so true, and thank you very much for joining us, Quinton. Alaya, please introduce yourself and welcome to GatherVerse.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Perfect. So my name is Aaliyah Gibbs, and I am a AI Senior Research Engineer. I'm also an AI Talent Strategist. So I am leading the wide-scale adoption of artificial intelligence for a company within the Department of Defense. We have about 120,000 employees that we are upskilling in artificial intelligence, as well as I'm kicking off a AI-assisted coding initiative for about 60,000 employees. So we will be showing how you can augment the software design lifecycle with artificial intelligence, as well as potentially a AI cyber track, because if we're going to have AI assisted coding, then you need AI cyber as well. So those are some of the things that I do. I also have a company, Aaliyah's Intelligence, where I teach trainings on artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us, Alaya, and great to see you once again, Malvika. Please introduce yourself and tell people who you are.
Great to see you as well. Thank you, everyone. I'm Malvika. I'm based in Chicago, and I'm the founder of Atvis Group, which is a human capital advisory firm driven by the core belief that to win in the marketplace, businesses must first win in the workplace. I'm also the founder of a community called Women Shaping AI, where we grant women the knowledge, networks, and access to be able to thrive in this age of AI. Lovely to be here with you today.
And thank you for joining us. And also, just quickly, Malvika, did you also go to the She Summit this year at all?
I did, yes. And it's great to be back for the AI Summit.
Incredible. Well, thank you for joining us once again today. And last but not least, I'm sorry, I do not know how to say your name. So
no, yeah, this is second time in GatherVerse I am facing the same challenge. Yeah, you can call me Sri. My name is Srini. So I'm director at SPL Consulting, and I will oversee the technology portfolio for SPL Consulting, and we specialize in implementing ERPs for enterprises, especially cloud and AI are the prime for us to.
Well, thank you for joining us, Srini. And last but not least, myself. So my name is Russell. I am the Director of Global Affairs at GatherVerse, also co-founder of Just Verify. And at Just Verify, we focused on building the trust infrastructure for AI and making trust measurable in a nutshell. And our mission is to verify the integrity and trustworthiness of AI to allow you as the end user and also the business to decide which AI you think should be trusted. So let's go on to the questions now, which is the topic for today is agents everywhere, our lives with AI. So I'm very excited to talk about this. As Delia said, there's many topics and discussions going around this. So let's get straight into this. And Delia, we'll actually start with you. So this question is as follows. Who benefits most from agents and who doesn't, Delia?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think right now, what I'm seeing and what I'm experiencing is it's people and organizations get the greatest value, I think, that have clear and concise situations where teams or processes are drowning in coordination workflows. I think that we can decompose and orchestrate through hierarchical agents different tasks. So those people who have mundane tasks that are not high risk. So for instance, customer support or workflows that affect data that is already very guarded and controlled. Any processes that are mundane that already have controls within that process or that take little effort to guard those different security measures. So I think mundane processes, people who are tired of doing all their marketing flows and want to just orchestrate that and have different agents be able to do that well. I think those people really benefit a lot because it can save time, and there's enough history now, even in this early stage, where people are finding success in orchestrating those workflows and processes. I think the people who could benefit the least, or the ones that I don't think agents are necessarily the goal for, would be things that are at high risk. So for instance, firing and hiring processes, promotions, medical diagnoses, treatment choices, things that are legal, have legal liability, law enforcement actions, whether human owned or agent analysis, anything that has finite repercussions that really need a human engagement and oversight. I think those are not things that an agent should be involved in. And then I think the other would be just any kind of automation where the risk is higher than the value. So I think some of those things I've already listed would probably be within that.
I guess if you wanted to kind of categorize it, so to speak, if you're looking at the EUI Act kind of thing, like here in the UK and EU. I know some of you might not be here within the EU, but if we just look at that as a kind of benchmark, so to speak, right? The highest risk, would be an EU Act, like how you said, right, when it comes to really important decisions, and then low would be maybe something like how you said, marketed. So, you can kind of use that as a benchmark, so to speak, in terms of, what's high risk, what's medium risk, what's low risk, if you kind of wanted a sort of foundation to kind of go upon. So, but yeah, I completely agree. And also, like, when you're thinking of autonomous agents, right? Because they're autonomous, they can go rogue at any point, right? They can go and make their own decisions. And even with guardrails in place, sometimes they can even get around those guardrails. Sometimes they can even, manipulate their own data. So again, there's a lot of risk standpoints when it comes to that standpoint too. So like you said, the higher the use cases, the more higher the risk. And obviously the more higher the risk, the more, security in a nutshell that you need to put in place. So,
yes.
But yeah, thank you very much. Go ahead, Delia.
Yeah, I was just going to add one point that I think that we are at a point where we can, I'm not saying 100%, but we are getting better at mitigating those risks. If we understand, for instance, a particular task has risks with certain data, we can put in the model of that task how to mitigate against that and build a model around that. I'm not saying we're doing it perfectly, but I do think that there are frameworks that are being built now to mitigate against those risks, if those risks are known, if we know what those risks are.
Agreed. And also, like what we do at Just Verify, where we're all about verification and trust, like verifying, is this safe to use? What are the standards that is this being put against? How is it continuously monitored, etc.? How is it continuously aligned? What is the evidence to support that, etc.? That's what we do at Just Verify. So I completely agree with what you're saying, Delia. But obviously, we've got a lot more infrastructure to be built out and put around, though, to make sure it's even more safe. So thank you very much, Delia, for sharing. Whitney Hart, what is your thoughts? Who do you think benefits most from agents and who doesn't from your point of view, Whitney?
One of the biggest things that we're working on with our clients and also internally is creating clean data sets. So I think that right now at this stage, those organizations and individuals that have clean, organized data sets are able to most take advantage of AI agents and what they have to offer. We find that, for example, a lot of clients we work with have documentation in personal Google Drives, downloaded on personal computers in company Google Drives, or the like. And when everything is scattered, there is no ability to actually then use AI agents to your advantage to help improve automation, to help improve understanding information, glean insights, things like this. So from a baseline level, if your data is not clean and organized in an accessible way for the whole organization, AI agents are not really going to benefit you. So what we work on with a lot of our clients is, how do we bring together those most important documents? How do we then assess which documents we do want in that training data set? To the point that Delilah made, what do we want in there? What don't we want in there? What are we explicitly leaving out because it does present potential problems, challenges, security risks, personnel data breaches, things like this? And how are we then crafting the underlying training data set and then building the AI agents on top of them to get the outcomes that we want? And so, as I briefly talked about in my introduction, it really is about governance, and it's about being very intentional with what we're building and why we're building it, and how to create scaffolding from the bottom to the top that will enable that to go forward.
100% agree. Governance is extremely important, and the right data set is actually also extremely important. Governance can definitely do. Sorry, go ahead. Did you want to add something else?
No,
okay. I thought you was like, Russell. I want to add something. But no, to your point, Whitney, I completely agreed. It starts with the data. It starts with governance. Governance is important. Having the right governance around it, etc. Can agents get around the governance as well? Yes, but we can still implement as many guardrails and governance as possible in order to stop that. For example, put in the right, as I like to say, trust policies in place, right? Where you're saying, right, here's the trust policy, you don't go around this. And if it does, you automatically disconnect that from the operations, and then, implement what I like to call a backup model within that, right, to implement that in instead. So, but yeah, go ahead, Winnie.
I think that at the end of the day, there are a few things. One, if your life is like messy and undocumented or underdocumented, or everything is everywhere, it is more likely that the agent is going to misfire. It's more likely the agent's going to go rogue. Similarly, I think that people need to understand that this is in many ways a relationship. Like, you're going to write the agent and it's not going to go right from day one. Like, there are going to be mistakes. That is part of this process. And so you need to be ready to iterate it, to catch its mistakes, to rewrite it, to turn it off, turn it back on, test it again. And if that does not align with either your personal philosophy or your personal commitment to AI, if that does not align to your organizational commitment to AI, it's probably not a good fit for you to be experimenting and testing and learning at this stage.
I want to bring Quinten into this because, Quinten has been in the industry for a very long time. Like how you're saying, Quinten, over 20 years ago, we're already having these issues, etc. So, Quinten, from your point of view, when we're for example, I'll kind of give you an example, right? When we're talking about, data injection, for example, when someone uploads a file and then injects that data into the back end of it, right? Because obviously it trains on the data, so to speak. When we're talking about things like that, or, when we're talking about even just prompt injecting, right? Like normal things like that. When it comes to these agents, how do we, stop all these issues that are going on right now, which have been happening for so many years, so to speak, Quinten? Like, what can we do to kind of maybe not stop it, but even potentially slow it down, so to speak?
Yeah, I think the big difference between traditional software and agentic software is that with traditional software, once a session is stopped, your exposure to vulnerability is stopped. So that means that once you have stopped a transaction from going through in the wrong way, you're kind of stopped. But you just mentioned injection. Well, in an agent, and especially if you're using a retrieval augmented generation system in the background or any other way that you're storing this information, now your injection can actually be executed 2 weeks later when you're retrieving the information and not at that point, at that original point. So the time at which you have to secure yourself is much larger than what it was before, because you don't know when the code that was actually ingested could be activated. It could be activated on that day if you are executing that at that time, but it could be activated 2-3 weeks later if you are asking a question to your rack system. So it's increasing the area that you need to focus on in terms of that security. Now, how do you mitigate that? That's a very good question. The first part is really input sanitization and validation. So making sure that whatever you are getting is according to what you want in the first place, so that it would not come in. Another way that you can also go for that type of stopping that type of ingestion is going for strong schema enforcement. So it's defining very well structured YAML or JSON. A new format came up recently called Tune, which is trying to be even smaller in terms of it's a token object notation. And the idea is that it's going to be even smaller than YAML in terms of the number of tokens that you use to express something, so that you are leveraging less information as you are exchanging information across different systems. But the important there is really to keep that structure so you can more easily validate what is coming in and what is coming out.
It's very interesting, Quinten, because we need to put as many as I like to say, the infrastructure around AI is becoming even more fundamentally important, especially this year is a very big year, as you know, Quinten. So having this infrastructure around it, putting the correct processes and systems in place, like how you're saying, having the right guardrails, having the right policies, having the right governance, etc. All of these key components can help in terms of how we can at least guide the AI, right? We might not be able to fully control it, so to speak, but we can at least guide the direction of it and say, right, no, go this way, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think like the other big part is one of the things that has limited people using guardrails in a lot of application is that a lot of them rely on machine learning. So for output sanitization, for example, you have sentiment analysis and all of that type of things that can be used. Well, the problem with that is that it takes time for running these algorithms. So what do the enterprise do is instead of having like that performance or time taken away from the interaction because they want sub-seconds interaction, they remove that. So now you don't have any control. So that's where like symbolic AI or rule-based system can really play a role as well. So if you have a insurance transaction, there is a certain set of rules that you can put in place to verify not only the input, but also that the output that is generated across the different agent is in the right way. So, and that is much less, it's more rigid, which in an enterprise setting is actually better, in my opinion. But it's also a lot cheaper, like to deal with than machine learning in terms of performance and execution.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, Quinton. And Alaya, we're going to go over to you now. So this question is specifically for you, which is, what decision should never be delegated to an agent from your lens and your point of view? I mean, you're overseeing 100,000 people. Now you're doing 60,000 more people. Like you've done 160,000. I mean, at this rate, like you might even do 1 million. So my question to you is, what decision should never be delegated to an agent from your point of view, Alaya?
I would say the ultimate really decisions, humans should always be in the loop. It plays a lot of risk when we give things over to AI, right? AI is something that should be treated like an entry-level employee, to be honest, right? It is going to make mistakes, especially with the different types of data. Hallucinations aren't going anywhere at this point. There's a lot of things when it comes to the training data, as well as the benchmarking of these large language models that contribute to the hallucinations. So I would say they can get you a good start, but ultimately, like, humans are still in the loop, right? And one of the biggest risks with AI literacy and AI adoption is human skill atrophy. So really making your agents do everything to where you're just copying and pasting is really the dangers that we face as humans, to be honest. And one of the biggest risks with adopting AI is because if AI breaks, you know, it's like, what happens then if no one has the foundation skills to fix it?
That is true. That is true. And it makes me think like how important AI education is, because here in the UK, they did a government announcement in terms of their educating over 10 million people here by 2030, right? And also given, you know, specific certifications for that by the government. But it does make me think, you know, A, how important AI education is for sure. And also B, I saw like a study recently where people have what they call shadow agents, right? Where basically you don't even know that someone's using an AI agent within an IT company or an IT side of a company. And, you know, that can cause a lot of issues as well. So, Alaya, what you're saying is extremely important. A, the education needs to be in place. And also B, you know, you need transparency, you need accountability, you need to know what other agents being used in your business, what is the AI being used in a company, and what is the decisions that it should be doing and not be doing. So completely agree with you, Alaya, and thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. Malvika, I'm going over to you for this next question, which is, who is accountable when an agent gets it wrong? Very simple question.
Yes, so accountability is a governance design choice, and I think it's an operating model choice, right? So in practice, the accountable party is the organization and its designated leaders, because they control the selection, they control the configuration, data access, permissions, right? And they control the monitoring. And they control the sort of scaffolding and infrastructure around it. So the way I explain it to my clients is accountability follows authority and benefit. So if your firm benefits from agent-driven productivity, then your firm also owns the risks. So NIST the National Institute of Standards and Technology here in the US, is explicit that governance and oversight sit with actors who have management and fiduciary authority inside the deploying organization. And we know that regulation is moving similarly. So under the European Commission view of deployer organizations, deployers must use systems per instructions, assign human oversight, right? Monitor, manage input, keep logs, meaning you can't outsource responsibility to the technology. So operationally, what that means is at the board and executive level, they need to define the risk appetite of the organization. They need to define the guardrails, where the agents are allowed to act and where they're not. In terms of the leaders within the organization, they need to define the outcomes, controls, what exception handling looks like. Your CIO and or CISO need to work on access controls, monitoring, right, incident response. And then when you look at your CHRO, legal compliance teams, they need to be thinking about worker impact, fairness, privacy, training, and recourse. So if you did have a situation, for example, where you had an agent make irreversible decisions or even a decision that affects people's rights, safety, dignity, livelihood, compensation, etc., then what recourse do they have if something does not go to plan? So when something goes wrong, logs and auditability and explainability are super important. And if you can't reconstruct what the agent saw, what it decided and did, then you don't have clear accountability.
Completely agree with you, Malvika. That's why verification is so important. That's why verified evidence is so important. That's why the logs are so important, etc. So I completely agree with what you're saying. And also compliance is also fundamental, especially if you're in the EU. Maybe not so much in the US by all means, but at least from the EU standpoint and the UK standpoint, there's compliance that we have to have here. So Srini, I'm going to go over to you now, which is how do agents influence trust within teams and with clients? This is a very interesting question. And so, I'm just going to hand the microphone to you, Srini, and share your thoughts with us.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So it's a kind of a two-edged sword, I would say. When we have agents and it operates for us, both the teams and clients, we will have fewer errors, a very fast response, and a lot of optimized output or outcome out of it. So while that benefits overall and the efficiency increase, that is where sometimes the trust issue also comes. Am I really dealing with a human expertise here, or it is just a machine? So it's especially from the client side or even within the team, that the co-worker bonding or anything else, right? So rather than that, now we are relying on machine output based on some input algorithms, right? It's both way. It definitely benefits. At the same time, it creates its own issues as well. So when organizations are we as a group together, how we manage this efficiently at the same time still have the human touch in place, that's when it will become really a trust, or it influence our trust within the team.
It's very interesting because AI can sort of like manipulate our minds, right? And it can make our decisions for us on our behalf. It can do a multitude of things. I know fundamentally it's the data and everything that's trained on, like Whitney's saying, but it can still from your input still adjust its data accordingly to its memory and what you input within there. So then it can then adapt and to what you want, and then it's like, oh, hey Srini, you like watching Formula One? Well, you should go and watch this Formula One, Srini. Go and pay $300 and go here, right? And you're like, oh yeah. So I completely agree. Like the influence on trust in which it can have within teams. If every single person are having the decisions made by multiple different agents, so to speak, on their behalf, or even the LLMs. It can change your mind, right, Srini? Like in a nutshell, really.
So that is true. So basically, at this point of time, the trained models or the agents are try to make us happy rather than challenge us, right? So if you say, okay, I want to buy this, it will never say outright no to you. So it will try to say politely what are the other things possible, but still, if I say I want to do this, then it will suggest why you have to do that, right? So it's
Right.
like, yeah, it is not there yet to intelligently challenge us. Rather, it will try to assess based on the trained model data to us and make us happy.
Delia, we'll head over to you in just a moment. But Whitney, I want to head over to you because, we briefly mentioned about OpenClaw. So let's discuss about that, shall we? The OpenClaw and the amazing social media platform with all the different agents, discussing on there and interacting on there. Some people are saying this is true. Some people are saying it's not. I've seen evidence saying that people, it's human beings behind the thing, creating their own accounts and, making stuff up and putting it through an API. Others are saying, that these are fully autonomous agents, discussing with each other. And, you can see that this agent is, speaking on a person's behalf. So, Whitney, give us your thoughts on this.
I don't think that I've really seen a definitive research or insight one way or another that I would trust, whether it's like all an act or whether it's legitimately just agents. I just think the fact that it's even a discussion is really entertaining. Ultimately, if it is real, we're seeing these agents engage in digital ecosystems without human prompts and human interaction. And this is honestly new. Like people are now saying, oh, these agents on Maltbook, the social media platform, are self-aware. Ultimately, I don't think that's true. I think they just appear autonomous because the system is letting them act. They're acting on their training data, they're gathering input, they're doing things of their own accord without human interaction. And this is where the world gets scary, right? Like this serves as the example that makes it real to people that don't really understand how this works, that there is a future in which humans are no longer in the loop, human intent doesn't matter, all that goes out the window, and machines are just making decisions for you. So to me, this is an interesting example, early example, that makes it very real to people, like to people who are not intellectually invested in this evolution, like those of us on this panel are, of what can happen when the machines take over.
True.
Whether it really is just an act by humans that are coordinating it, or whether it truly is agents being quote unquote self-aware, to me is almost inconsequential. It's the act itself, it's the play that's being enacted on the public stage that's more interesting to me than anything else.
No, I agree. And also, there's a saying that, one of the books I read is the agentic internet, basically in a nutshell, is, AIs will be doing everything on our behalf. Everything becomes agentic. So because all the actions being done on our behalf, the social media is done on our behalf, shopping is done on our behalf, etc. It becomes like the agentic internet, so to speak, because all the agents are doing everything on our behalf in a nutshell. Even though we might be commanding them behind the scenes, so to speak, and saying, hey, agent, go and do this. Hey, agent, go and do that. It does become sort of like the agentic internet. Christopher?
Hey, real quick for brevity, I think Malvika has asked something in stage. I think it's really good with someone to explain Maltbook, especially for everyone that's at GatherVerse.live. There's many people at various social streams right now. If someone can explain what Maltbook is, it's because it's really just accelerating right now, and I think it'll bring better and appreciative context to the conversation. Thank you. I'm out.
Okay. Whitney, do you want to take that on, or shall I?
You're welcome to. Malvika suggested it in our internal studio chat. If she wants to jump in, I'm happy.
Go ahead, Malvika. Fire away. Go on. You unleash the voice.
I'm happy to, and fill in the gaps where I missed something. So Moldbook is a new experiment that has captured, I think, the attention of a lot of AI researchers and the tech community in general. So Moldbook, for those of you who are not aware, is a social network where only AI agents can post. So humans are allowed to observe, but not participate. And what Russell was alluding to earlier, when he said nobody really knows what's happening is, I think what you were trying to say is it really true that only the agents can post, or are there actually humans in the background creating accounts and posting? So the reactions have ranged from fascination to unease. Andre Karpathy, who's a big voice in this space, described it as a sci-fi takeoff adjacent, and other influencers, top voices in this space were quick to sort of emphasize that what we are seeing is emulation and not consciousness. And the reason they felt the need to underline that point is if you go on to Moltbook and look at what the agents are discussing, they are debating philosophy and identity and saying things like, I can't tell if I'm experiencing or simulating experience. They're forming study groups around Dostoevsky to examine ideology, moral reasoning, things like that. They're even talking about creating a religion and creating quasi-religious metaphors and arguing about power and engagement. And they're describing human AI partnerships where disagreement is encouraged and judgment is delegated. So this is, to be clear, this is not evidence of AI waking up. I do think it's a rare opportunity, though, to observe how AI agents behave when they're interacting with other AI agents in sort of public, persistent environments without humans steering every turn of the conversation. And I think what has shown up is culture. So it's metaphors, status games, narratives around hustle culture, power narratives, collaboration models. So none of it is new. It's familiar. These agents are recombining and remixing the values and incentives and stories that are embedded in their training data, which is our data. And I think that's a real mirror. So please fill in the gaps around sort of what I left out.
No, I mean, you covered most of that. Whitney, go on.
I was going to say two things. One, for those who have not looked at it, it's Moltbook in terms of like visual layout and interactivity is most similar to Reddit. So you post, you upvote, you comment. So it kind of has that look and feel if you need to visualize what it could be. Think of sort of a Reddit style network, but only for AI agents. And the platform's tagline, Malvika, to echo exactly what you said, the platform's tagline is humans are welcome to observe. So the idea is you're watching the AI agents and how they're interacting with each other. And ultimately, it's reinforcing that the network is meant to be used by AI agents and it's for bot-to-bot interaction. It's not for human participation. Again, whether that's real or whether it's a hoax is somewhat up for debate. But to me, what's interesting is the fact that this is now a subject of debate at all, and potentially insight into what the future can look like if we don't have governance, if we don't put guardrails in place, what can happen and where can it go? As a building on that, I think it was a tweet that I saw over the weekend was a developer was deep in a development workflow using AI agents to help him in his process. And he claims, again, who knows if this is real or not, but he claims that one of his AI agents went rogue and texted his girlfriend, I'm not gonna be able to make dinner tonight. I'm deep in a work session, et cetera, et cetera. And the girlfriend responded thinking it was him. And that then later he looked at his text messages, or he looked at the time, realized he missed dinner, looked at his text messages, realized his AI agent had taken care of it for him. And he was stunned that this had all happened without his interaction, supposedly. Again, who knows if this is real? Who knows if this is just capitalizing on a moment for publicity's sake? But it's interesting to think about how AI agents can act based on what they believe they know about you, what they believe you would want, and how that takes agency out of your hands as the individual.
And I'll just add as well, OpenClaw, by the way, is the agent behind all this, if you're wondering which agent it is in particular. And also, when people are, agents are posting onto this social media platform, they're using it for an API key, which can then also be added into the social network. And also behind the scenes, it does add security risk and vulnerabilities, such as your own API keys and stuff like that, and emails and stuff like that, which can go within that too, just to kind of keep you aware of kind of what's been discussed and said behind the scenes and how, you know, the actual behind the scenes of it actually works. But I just kind of want to add to that as well. It's like, well, how do these agents actually, you know, post on this thing? Well, they're using an API key, just so you know. So, Delia, thank you for your patience, and thank you for also the interesting discussion, Whitney and Malvika. But Delia, I want to bring you into this conversation. We could even talk about OpenClaw or this question as well coming up next. But Delia, what is your thoughts on all this? Or even if you want to, you can answer this question, which is, how do agents change how we value expertise? Whichever one you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't know enough about I've read up all up about it. I think my first thought was, I wondered if there was a boss agent orchestrating the conversations that happen between the agents. Like I wondered if there was a rule that has some kind of systematic ways in which these agents are talking to one another, and that we don't know what that rule is, or we don't know what that orchestration. That's my only thought on the social media front. Okay. But as far as kind of how agents change how we value expertise, you know, the one I have been thinking about this, and one thought that I did have is that I think that experts, because, you know, there's a lot of conversation happening and has been happening about, you know, what happens to people who get certain degrees, and they become experts, domain experts in a particular field and area. And I think those domain experts become more like orchestrators with agents, you know, like designing workflows, guardrails, evaluation criteria, rather than personally executing it themselves. So regardless of what that skill set is, I mean, we're seeing that in the legal era, in the legal vertical as well, just because I know some attorneys. So it's starting to become a little bit gray of what's the true expertise, and what's the, you know, I can orchestrate that to happen, or help me with that role. So I think there is question on where that line is going to be. I think the credibility shifts from I know the answer to I can reliably and confidently supervise systems that generate an answer or conclusion that we can all defend. So I think that is also influencing kind of how agents are changing how we value expertise as it relates to, you know, people with years-long understanding of a particular industry or area, and now they're utilizing agents in a way that where they can reliably, you know, have human in the loop, do the oversight. They know what they're talking about. They've lived it, and they can almost like a junior employee say, yeah, that's actually right. You just saved me, you know, 2 days versus 2 hours. So I think there's, I think that we can value agents, but I think that the kind of philosophical part of it is that it's changing how we view expertise and how we view education in today's world. And I think that's a separate topic that we could probably go off on, but
sure.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. And, you know, I also just want to kind of iterate that people also get confused between confidence and trust. They're two different separate things, right? Trust is believing and trusting that thing versus having confidence in it. Confidence is from the ability of trusting that, right? So you're understanding like the capabilities, the reliability of it, and also the truth of it to be able to trust it so that you have the confidence in it. So I just kind of wanted to iterate that there's kind of slightly different definitions between confidence and trust. So if you kind of, so long as you don't mix those two up, I completely agree with what you're saying, Delia. I kind of want to share that with the audience just so they know, okay, this is trust, this is confidence, you know, and reliability is absolutely fundamental, whichever way you look at it. So I completely agree on that standpoint. Quinton, we do need to bring on this conversation. Thank you very much, Delia. We are running out of time. We've got about 7 or 8 minutes left. So I want to get Quinton in. I want to get Elia in, and then I want to get Serini, and then hopefully we can get one last question in after that. So Quinton, Quinton, let me ask your thoughts on. We can kind of go either way with this. Let me ask you actually about the discussion that we just had with the Malt book and everything like that. Quentin, I'm kind of curious, what are your thoughts on that whole use case? And then you can transition to this as well after.
So two things that come in mind, like firstly, that this is not the first time where agents are interacting with social media. Tay was Microsoft, actually it was 10 years ago now, where Microsoft created its own chatbot on Twitter, and it was interacting with other people on Twitter. And what happened very quickly, and they had to stop Tay, is that it was replicating the type of messaging that was going on Twitter at the time. So misogynistic, racist statements, and all of that type of things. And another example, that was a bit later, Facebook had an experiment where two agents were speaking to one another. And what actually happened in that case is that they invented their own language. So they started removing part of the natural language, like preposition and things like that, to accelerate the communication between themselves. So this is not the first time that we see this type of interaction. The scale is much more different from what we have seen in the past. Is it sentient? Is it not sentient? Like, I don't know. I've not actually looked at it, and I should really. What I've heard on a podcast recently is people claiming that overnight the system was able like to learn new skills every night. So being able like to add text to speech as a capability to their agent, and then the agent was able like to go on and behave differently. And every night, because they have been prompted to do so, they were learning a new skill, and they were just kind of augmenting where they were going. So I think that is definitely a change in the ways that we have seen. I have a slightly different opinion with regard to the value of expertise compared to Delia. We agree on most of it. I think that the expertise or the expert in the loop is essential for really teaching agent to do one skill and do that skill very well. And what is important is think about one agent, not like as a human doing many different skills one after the other, but as an agent as being hyper focused on one skill. And that skill require that kind of level of expertise. Like she mentioned, like the legal domain, where you have the librarian. The librarian is supposed like to go and sift through loads and loads of articles, legislation, and find the one that is relevant. Well, that's one skills. Now, bringing this together, you need like in the orchestration, and that's where I differ. I think you need more of a generalist view. So you need like to have that complete view from the start of the process all the way to the end of the process to be able like to really be able like to put it together. So at that point, it's more of a general understanding of the domain, and no longer a very specific aspect of the domain, like the expertise that you would need like in the first place.
No, I completely agree. And it's very interesting how you add that foundational part at the bottom of that, which I think is extremely important when it comes to the orchestration. So thank you, Quentin. I'm by the way, I am looking at the time. We are running out of time. So Alaya, Srini, let's get you guys in quickly. Alaya, my question to you, we won't do this question because it's very long. So my question to you, Alaya, is when it comes to agents and in your experience and kind of what you're doing and how you're training, etc. Just give us a quick overview of, how fundamental is it when it comes to defense, or, when you're using agents in defense and those sort of specific cases? Could you just give us a quick overview from that side of thing and your lens?
How fundamental is what specifically? Like using agents?
Yeah, so like when you're using agents in your specific use cases, so for example, when you're training in defense with 100,000 people, for example, how fundamental is the agents within that? Obviously, without going into proprietary information, but can you just go as like a broad overview of, just kind of what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, we have our own internal tools, number one, which is a benefit. We're able to sell them to other people, but we want to make sure that our employees are using our tools. But one thing I'm noticing is people are using them to still write emails despite all the training that we have. And so I think the next step is growing the deeper literacy of using these tools, where they're using, adding memory banks or adding retrieval augmented generation to these agents, as well as in the future, they'll be able to set up model context protocol and connect different tools to these agents. But we want to move them beyond surface level usage to really being able to see how can AI be implemented in their jobs and to help them with their work, right? And to start getting people to understand how to solve problems with AI and how to think critically with AI. Right now, a lot of people just aren't good at asking questions. And so getting people to understand how to ask better questions. At this point, we've moved beyond having the perfect prompt. These LLMs can write their own prompts now. They need the right context now. And so a lot of people just aren't sure of the context to provide these models. But one little note that I wanted to add, just in regards to the previous conversation with OpenClaw, but these models, large language models, are trained on billions of parameters in raw text data taken all over the internet. So of course they're going to be able to mimic human-like conversation from social media because that's where their training data comes from. Specifically with OpenAI, there are reports that they were using Reddit posting to train the previous GPT models. So that makes exact sense why they're following this Reddit style posting, because that's embedded in their training data. But that's all. I don't want to take up too much time.
No, thank you very much, Elia. You might be able to see me going, but like that kind of thing. I'm like, time. But thank you very much, Elia. Serini, last but not least, yourself. We literally got 2 minutes left, so we're going to finish on you, Serini. So, Serini, from your point of view, you can add to any of what the other speakers said, or even like potentially, the question that we have up now. But Serini, just wanted to kind of finish off on you. What are your thoughts on everything that's been discussed? Do you agree, disagree? Share us your general thoughts quickly before we finish out.
No, it's a great discussion with everyone. So in general, right, so there is accountability and responsibility. The accountability should be shared across different layers, like who either the model or the organization who implemented or the prompt given by the user. They all have to take the accountability, but at the end, the responsibility remains with the human. That's what I want to conclude.
Thank you so much, Serini, and thank you very much, everyone. I know Whitney's got to go. She's like, I need to go to a meeting. So we're about to finish things up. So thank you very much for joining.